Some billionaires collect cars, some collect art, some collect companies, but the truly obsessed ones collect real estate on a scale that defies belief, building portfolios of mansions, compounds, and private islands that together add up to fortunes larger than entire national economies. Today we're going inside the combined $3 billion world of the richest people on Earth's most jaw-dropping homes, the private islands, the hidden compounds, the 27-story towers, and the secret security fences protecting properties most of us will only ever see from a distance. By the end of this, you'll understand that for the ultra-wealthy, a house isn't just a place to sleep, it's a statement, a fortress, and sometimes an entire empire unto itself. Let's start with the man whose real estate portfolio might be the most sprawling and secretive of any billionaire alive. Jeff Bezos. Rather than owning one single trophy mansion, Bezos has spent the last decade quietly assembling an empire of properties scattered across the country, and when you add them all together, the numbers become almost impossible to comprehend. It starts with the Warner Estate in Beverly Hills, a 9.4-acre property once owned by media mogul David Geffen, which Bezos purchased in 2020 for $165 million, at the time the highest price ever paid for a residential property in the Los Angeles area. Built in 1937 for Warner Brothers studio chief Jack Warner, the estate carries a Hollywood pedigree that money alone can't manufacture. But Bezos didn't stop there. He also bought the house directly behind the estate for privacy and security, essentially building a buffer zone that only the truly paranoid, or the truly powerful, would ever think to construct. Then there's his historic mansion in Washington, D.C.'s Kalorama neighborhood, a 27,000-square-foot property once used as a textile museum, purchased for $23 million, and renovated with a reported additional $12 million, adding a ballroom, a whiskey cellar, and enough bedrooms and bathrooms to comfortably house an entire extended family. And that's before you even get to Miami, where Bezos and his partner Lauren Sanchez have assembled multiple properties on the ultra-exclusive Indian Creek Island, an island so secure and so private that neighbors reportedly include A-list celebrities and business titans who value invisibility just as much as luxury. Add in a compound in Maui, a base in Medina, Washington on the shores of Lake Washington, apartments inside a coveted Manhattan building, and hundreds of thousands of acres of land in West Texas, connected to his Blue Origin space venture, and Bezos's real estate holdings alone start to resemble a small country's worth of prime property, all owned by a single man. From there, we move to a completely different flavor of billionaire real estate, the story of Mukesh Ambani's Antilia in Mumbai, which remains one of the most audacious private homes ever constructed anywhere on Earth. Valued anywhere from $1 to $2 billion depending on the year and the source, Antilia rises 27 stories into the Mumbai skyline, built for a family of just 5 people plus the enormous staff required to run it. Multiple helipads sit on the roof, a 3-story parking garage holds well over 100 vehicles, and the building even includes its own snow room, engineered to blast artificial cold air and snowfall as relief from Mumbai's brutal heat. What makes Antilia so different from an American billionaire's scattered property portfolio is its singular concentration. Instead of spreading wealth across a dozen homes in a dozen cities, the Ambani family poured an almost unimaginable fortune into one single vertical fortress, a monument that towers, quite literally, over everyone else in the neighborhood. Then there's a very different kind of billionaire real estate story, Bill Gates and his sprawling estate known as Xanadu 2.0, located on the shores of Lake Washington in Medina, just down the road from where Bezos himself first put down roots. Gates began building the compound in the late 1980s, well before most people had ever heard the word billionaire used as a lifestyle descriptor, and the finished estate reportedly took 7 years and tens of millions of dollars to complete. The main house alone spans over 66,000 square feet, and it includes a 2,400 square foot trampoline room, with a ceiling 7 meters high. A library modeled after the personal library of a historic English estate, and an underground garage capable of holding 23 vehicles. Even more remarkable is the technology embedded throughout the home. Sensors that adjust temperature and lighting automatically as guests move from room to room, and touchscreen panels that allow visitors to select artwork to display on digital displays hung throughout the house, essentially transforming physical walls into rotating galleries. Gates's estate has become almost mythic in tech circles, less a house than a proof of concept for what unlimited resources and unlimited imagination can build when combined in one place. Not every billionaire chooses a single sprawling mansion, though. Larry Ellison, the co-founder of Oracle, took an entirely different approach. Rather than building one house, he simply bought an island. In 2012, Ellison purchased approximately 98% of the Hawaiian island of Lanai, giving him control over not just a residence but an entire community, its infrastructure, its hotels, and its economy. It's a level of real estate ambition that goes beyond even the biggest mega mansions on this list, since Ellison effectively became landlord to an entire island population, responsible for schools, utilities, and local business alongside his own personal compounds scattered across the property. Where most billionaires buy privacy by building bigger fences, Ellison simply bought the whole landmass surrounding his front door. And then there's Mark Zuckerberg, whose approach to real estate reflects the particular anxieties of a man who built one of the most scrutinized companies on the planet. Rather than a single showcase mansion, Zuckerberg has spent years quietly buying up properties surrounding his primary Palo Alto home, reportedly purchasing multiple neighboring houses simply to control who lives near him and to expand his privacy buffer, mirroring the same instinct that led Bezos to buy the house behind his own Beverly Hills estate. Beyond Palo Alto, Zuckerberg has also built a massive compound in Kauai, Hawaii, spanning well over 1,000 acres, complete with its own agricultural operations, guest houses, and enough natural buffer land that neighbors and even low-flying aircraft become a genuine rarity rather than a daily occurrence. For someone whose entire fortune was built on connecting billions of strangers to each other online, Zuckerberg's real estate philosophy reads almost like the opposite instinct, building walls of land and water between himself and the rest of the world. There's one more name worth adding to this list, if only because his story runs completely against the grain of everyone else's. Elon Musk, at various points the richest man alive, has repeatedly claimed to own no mansion at all, famously selling off nearly his entire real estate portfolio, including a string of Bel Air properties, and stating publicly that he intended to own no permanent house whatsoever, instead renting a modest home near his SpaceX facility in Texas. Whether or not that minimalist image tells the whole story, Musk's approach stands as a fascinating contrast to everyone else on this list, a reminder that even among the wealthiest people on the planet, not everyone chases square footage as the ultimate symbol of success. For some billionaires, the flex isn't the size of the compound, it's the willingness to walk away from real estate altogether and let the rest of the fortune speak for itself. It's also worth pausing on just how much labor and infrastructure sits quietly behind each of these properties, invisible to anyone looking at a real estate listing or a glossy magazine spread. Every one of these homes requires a small army to actually function day to day: groundskeepers, security teams, private chefs, household managers, and specialized technicians on call for everything from elevators to home automation systems. Xanadu 2.0's underground technology alone reportedly required a dedicated team just to maintain the sensors and displays woven throughout the house, while a property the size of Antilia needs a staff numbering in the hundreds simply to keep the building running, fed, cleaned, and secured around the clock. None of this appears in a single listing price or a tabloid headline, but it's arguably just as important to understanding what these homes really cost their owners, not just at the moment of purchase, but every single day afterward. It's also worth pausing on why so many billionaires end up building portfolios instead of single trophy homes in the first place. A scattered collection of properties across multiple cities and countries isn't just about lifestyle variety, it's about redundancy and control. If unrest, scrutiny, or simply boredom pushes a billionaire out of one location, having 4 or 5 other fully staffed compounds ready and waiting means never being without a secure private place to land. It's a level of planning most people will never need to think about, but for individuals whose net worth and public profile make them permanent targets for attention, both wanted and unwanted, it becomes almost a necessity rather than an indulgence. It's worth remembering, too, that these homes rarely stay static once purchased. Renovation budgets on properties like these often rival or exceed the original purchase price, since ultra-wealthy buyers tend to gut and rebuild interiors entirely to match their own taste, rather than simply moving into someone else's vision of luxury. Bezos's $12 million renovation of his Washington mansion is a modest example by billionaire standards, and it's common across this entire list for a property's true final cost to be double or triple whatever number first appeared in a headline. That's part of why tracking the real value of billionaire real estate is so difficult. The purchase price is only ever the starting point, not the finish line. So what ties all of these stories together, despite how different each billionaire's approach actually is? The first pattern is scale without limits. Whether it's Ambani building a 27-story tower in the middle of one of the most densely populated cities on Earth, or Ellison simply purchasing an entire island, or Gates spending 7 years perfecting a single 66,000 square foot compound, the common thread is that none of these people were ever constrained by a normal person's definition of enough. The second pattern is privacy as the ultimate luxury. Bezos buying the house behind his own mansion, Zuckerberg buying up his Palo Alto neighbor's properties. These aren't just displays of wealth, they're active investments in isolation, since for people at this level of fame and fortune, being left alone has become far more valuable and far harder to buy than any marble floor or private theater. The third pattern, and maybe the most surprising one, is that even at $3 billion combined, these properties represent only a tiny fraction of these men's overall net worth, meaning even the most extravagant compound on this list is, to its owner, closer to a rounding error than a genuine financial sacrifice. And that raises the real question worth sitting with as this list comes to a close. At what point does a house stop being a home and start being something else entirely, a fortress, a status symbol, a piece of a larger empire? For Ambani, Antilia is a monument to how far a single family's ambition can rise, quite literally, above an entire city. For Bezos, his scattered portfolio isn't really about any one property, it's about building an invisible perimeter of safety and privacy around a life lived permanently in public view. For Gates, Xanadu 2.0 stands as an early proof that technology and architecture could merge decades before most people even understood what a smart home meant. For Ellison, owning nearly an entire island represents control on a scale most of us can barely imagine, not just of a house but of an entire self-contained world. And for Zuckerberg, the quiet accumulation of neighboring land tells a story less about luxury and more about the price of fame in the internet age, where privacy has become the rarest commodity money can still buy. Combined, these properties, the towers, the compounds, the islands, the fortress-like buffer zones, easily cross the $3 billion mark, and yet for the men who own them, that number barely registers against their broader fortunes. It's a reminder that at the very top of the wealth pyramid, real estate stops being about mortgages and square footage altogether, and becomes something closer to sculpture, each property shaped and reshaped over years or even decades to reflect exactly how its owner wants to live, hide, entertain, or simply exist above the reach of everyone else. So when you step back and look at the full picture, from Bezos's scattered coast-to-coast empire, to Ambani's single soaring tower, to Gates's technological showcase on Lake Washington, to Ellison's entire private island, to Zuckerberg's quiet buffer of neighboring land, to Musk's deliberate rejection of the whole game entirely, one truth becomes clear: there is no single blueprint for how the richest people on Earth choose to live. Some chase scale, some chase privacy, some chase history, and some chase the freedom of owning almost nothing at all. But together, These choices paint a vivid picture of what happens when money stops being a constraint and starts being a canvas, one where houses become monuments, islands become kingdoms, and even a simple decision about where to sleep at night becomes its own kind of billion-dollar statement.